Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, allow me to welcome you on behalf of the Embassy of the State of Israel at the concert celebrating Israel's 74th Independence Day. It's a true privilege to have with us this evening the renowned Israeli maestro Nira Branda and the Makris Symphony Orchestra, which gathers some of the most talented musicians in the region. Please stand up for the national anthems of the State of Israel and the Republic of Serbia. Please sit down. I would like to call to the podium His Excellency, Ambassador of Israel, Jahel Vilan.
Good evening. It's indeed such a great pleasure to have you all coming here to celebrate with us our 74th Independence Day of the State of Israel. It's also great to see, after so long, such a full hall, and I do hope for all of us that this will be our reality from now on. We are also marking this year the 30th anniversary of the renewal of diplomatic relations between Serbia and Israel, which is also a very important landmark for us. I will see how I can do it with the reading a little bit. No, it's okay. And so it's indeed my great pleasure to stand here in front of you today to mark this 30th anniversary and the Independence Day of Israel, 30th anniversary of the renewal of diplomatic relation between the State of Israel and the Republic of Serbia. Officially, these diplomatic relations were cut by the government of Yugoslavia after the war of 1967 and was reestablished actually officially in 91, but then embassies started in 92. And what is more important for me to mention is that I mentioned officially, because relation between our two nations in the deepest and the most sincere meaning of the word were never disrupted. Serbia is not a neighbor of Israel on a geographical map, but is definitely a neighbor in the heart. You don't need to be historian or poet or prophet in order to see the deep similarities between our two people. Our intimate relations derive from a common historical past, present challenges, and future dreams. Both people were enslaved by their bleeding history, foreign occupations, loss of sovereignty, and heroic struggle to maintain their cultural and spiritual heritage in an ever-changing environment. The Jewish community has always been an integral part of the Serbian nation, sharing both good days and challenging times. Both our nation had to sacrifice so much in order to prevail and survive, and we both succeeded. One of the most prominent figures in that shared history of Serbia and Israel is Dr. David Albala, Serbian patriot and fervent Zionist, who embodied in his personality the historic crossroad in our parallel journeys. On December 27, 1917, he was basically the first to write a letter to recommend the Serbian government to accept and endorse the Balfour Declaration calling for a Jewish state in Israel. And what I think is more important than his letter to his friend Milenko Vesnić, then the Serbian ambassador to the US and later on the Prime Minister, I think it's the reply, the answer of Ambassador Vesnić. And in his letter he wrote back, "One cannot ignore the profound sympathy and respect that accompanied the emotive letter. After expressing this sympathy of the government of the people of Serbia for the just cause, which will enable the Jews to take their place in the future society of nations according to their numerous capacities and in their unquestioned right," he continues to say, "You know, dear Captain Albala, that there is no other nation in the world sympathizing with this plan more than Serbia." In closing, Vesnić wrote, "It will be a sad thing for us to see any of our Jewish fellow citizens leaving us to return to their promised land, but we shall console ourselves in the hope that they will stand as brothers and live with us a good part of their hearts, and they will be the strongest tie between free Israel and Serbia." Prophetically, Vesnić erased the typed word Zion in the last sentence and replaced it with a handwritten Israel, though the name hadn't been suggested yet for the future Jewish state. I think he was right in both, not only in calling us Israel, but also in his prophet that the Jews who left to Israel and those who stayed here remain the strongest link and bond between our two nations. And it's really great to have so many of you guys here tonight. And moving from the long history to the more shorter one, we are very happy to see what we have achieved in the last 30 years. We'll show you in very shortly a short clip of some of the Israeli businesses which are you can see all over Serbia. Probably not all of you know that all of them are made in Israel or made in Serbia, but by Israel. So I want to thank very much my good friend, Maestro Nira Branda, the director of the orchestra and the musicians. And once again, thank you all very much for coming to share this important evening with us. Enjoy the evening. Thank you very much.
Before leaving you in a good hands of Maestro Nira Branda and the orchestra, it gives me great pleasure to announce a brief video that would present some of the highlights of Israel-Serbia economic relations. Thank you very much. Toda rabba. I'm sure you will enjoy the evening. And now, Maestro Nira Branda.
Shalom and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Makris Symphony Orchestra, Belgrade. I'm so happy to be here tonight, and we have tons of great music for you. And I urge you from this moment on to clap, to sing, to cry if you feel like it. Don't be shy. I'm definitely going to cry a few times, and you'll see it. Please enjoy the evening. I'm a proud Israeli, proud to be here. I would like to thank in advance, but not for the last time this evening, His Excellency Ambassador Jahel Vilan. Mrs. Vilan, and Mrs. Brand. Mr. Mayor, distinguished guests, enjoy the evening. Thank you. This, of course, was the opening to the opera Carmen. And previously we've played the overture to the opera The Marriage of Figaro by Wolfgang Amadeus. And this is Dvořák, Slavonic Dance number 2. And if you're feeling romantic, often asked by children and adults all over the world, is classical music still alive? And I say, absolutely. So why does classical music exist? Music in general impersonates life. It sounds exactly like us. And then kids tell me, well, we cannot understand classical music, it's too abstract. What is da, ba, 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 ba? What does it mean? If you sing a song with lyrics, we will understand. And then I tell them, listen, use your imagination. For example, once upon a time, there was a little boy named Wolfgang Amadeus. Mozart was just a regular guy. He used to wake up every morning, brush his teeth, eat something, write a symphony and go to school. That's all you give me? One day he was sitting in his classroom and suddenly there was a knock on the door. Door opened and in came a beautiful little girl. We will later know that her name was Constanza. And Mozart fell in love with her immediately. His heart started beating. But he was too shy to tell her how much he loved her. So he decided to use music. One fine afternoon, he went to her house, stood by the window, and sang, "Can we meet, oh can we meet today?" He knew, or more likely felt, that each of us, when we ask a question, the intonation, the melody beneath our words always goes up, right? So we say, "Can we meet, oh can we meet today?" Constanza opened the window and sang, "Not today, come back another day." Dear Mozart decided to never give up. So we sang, "Tomorrow is not so good for me. It might be good for you, but not so good for me. We better wait and see, and see, and see. Oh no, I cannot wait a moment more. Without you, life is gonna be a bore, bore, bore. Come on, take my hand and be my wife. We'll be together till the end of time." They did get married, thank you, and they had 6 boys and girls. But none of them got married. None of them had any children. So there's no one in this world who can say, my great, 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 great grandfather was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. But we Jewish people say that as long as you speak of someone, he's alive. And look at us now. It's May 5th, 2022, and we're talking of someone who died 1791. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And this is first movement of Eine kleine Nachtmusik. Thank you. Johannes Brahms, who unfortunately was neither Israeli, neither Serbian, wrote some great, great, great music. You all know the 21 Hungarian dances he wrote. And if you're kind enough, we'll give a bis, an encore of Brahms' Hungarian dance number 5. This is, if you tell us to. But number 2 is, to my taste, the most beautiful one. And it's said, I don't know if you like this joke, but it is said that Brahms was not such a nice character. He was once invited, I'm sure you know this story, right? You know this story. You tell me if it's good or not. He was once invited to listen to a new composition composed by some friend of his. It was an evening, and the light was a little dark in the room, and everybody was sitting patiently and listening to the new composition of one of the friends. When this ended, everybody looked at Brahms, waiting to see how he reacts, what his opinion would be. Brahms took his time, and then stepped to the piano, took the manuscript, and said, "My friend, where do you buy such good paper?" You see, they liked it. Not liked, but liked. This is Brahms' Hungarian dance number 1. Thank you. Dvořák Slavonic dance number 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 8. Are you ready? Are you ready? Because as I've described it to the orchestra, this is heavy metal. So please fasten your seatbelts. Antonin Dvorak, Slavonic dance number 8. The Makris Symphony Orchestra, Belgrade. This is my special, yeah. And it is my special privilege and honor to invite to the stage the musical director and the general director of the Makris Symphony Orchestra, Mr. Predrag Gosta. As we say in Yiddish, my brother from another mother. This next song is very dear to us Israelis. It's called Jerusalem of Gold. And why is it called Jerusalem of Gold? Because I'm sure you've all been to Israel, right? I know you will be, especially after this concert. But when you look at Jerusalem from west to east, at dusk, 5, 6, depends on the season, it actually looks like it's made of gold. This is why the poet and composer Naomi Shemer composed it so beautifully, and Predrag was kind enough to sing it for us, right? And look at his bow tie. This is a bow tie of Zahav, of gold, Jerusalem of gold, and a bow tie of gold. Right?
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all, and I'm very happy that our orchestra has this chance to show you what we can do in our city of Belgrade. Thank you.
Now you will hear this beautiful orchestration, which was written by a special man. Who is this man? I will tell you all in a few minutes. This is Jerusalem of Gold.
Avir harim tzalon kayayim vereach oranim nisa beruach harbayim im kol pahamonim uftardevat ilan vaheven shoya badad yoshevet uveliba choma Yerushalayim shel zahav veshel nechoshet veshel or halo lechol shirayich ani kinor Yerushalayim shel zahav veshel nechoshet veshel or halo lechol shirayich ani kinor ach bevoich hayom lashir lach velach likshor ktarim katonti mitzeir banayich umeachron hamshorerim kishmech tzorev et chasvatayim ki neshikat sarav im eshkachech Yerushalayim asher kula Yerushalayim shel zahav shel oshet veshel or halo lechol shirayich ani kinor Yerushalayim shel zahav veshel nechoshet veshel or halo lechol shirayich
gosta. Thank you. And now I will sing in Serbian. But you will.
Thank
I travel all over the world sharing my love for music and my love for Israel all over the world, even during pandemia. And I never give up as much as I can. My weekly lesson with my conducting teacher. He was studying at Franz Liszt Academy in Budapest until he was thrown out, 1940 something, sent to Auschwitz with his mother and father. He didn't see his mother since, but managed to come out of Auschwitz and 3 other concentration camps alive, to go back to Franz Liszt Music Academy in Budapest, complete his studies, come to Israel, and become one of the greatest orchestrators and conductors ever. He orchestrated Jerusalem of Gold. He is going to be 102 come this July. And I wish I would be in his situation when I'm 80. He can read without glasses, he works on a computer, and sometimes I can say, can I come next Monday? He said, no, I'm busy. And he told me personally that he was one of the nights in one of the camps, it was December 31st, 1944. They asked them to play at the officers' party. And they were sitting and playing in the corner. And suddenly he feels someone coming from the door next to him. And he recognized the most violent officer there was. And he suddenly feels something stuck in his ribs. And a voice whispering, if you won't play the song I love right now, I will kill you. Somehow God sat on his shoulder and he managed to get out of there alive. The gun was taken out of his ribs. I would like to dedicate this piece to him and then add another story. On my radio show in Israel, I often hosted greatest musical figures. One of them was Yitzhak Perlman. You do know about Yitzhak Perlman. And Yitzhak Perlman played everything there is for violin repertoire, all the concertos of Tchaikovsky and Beethoven and Brahms and Vivaldi and Bach. And the show is 55 minutes long, and I'm dying, quote unquote, to ask him about a little piece each and every one of us knows. Schindler's List. So I waited patiently until 5 minutes to the end of the show, and I asked him, tell me, Mr. Perlman, how did John Williams, who is not Jewish, manage to write such a Jewish melody? And he said, you know, it's funny you ask, because this is exactly what I've asked John Williams when we met prior to the recording of this piece for the movie. And he says, Perlman, John Williams looked at me and then started singing. I'm sure you'll find it in the music to Schindler's List. And it is my privilege to host the young soloist, Lena Lanchor. was once invited to perform for the Israeli Security Service, aka Mossad. Now that we all have Netflix, we all know about Mossad. The date was September 12th, 2001. And like all of us, I was glued with my wife Ilana to the television screen, watching this horrendous disaster, waiting for the phone call to come to say, you know, Mr. Brand will definitely have to postpone. And the telephone did come saying, Mr. Brand, you must come tomorrow morning. We need your energy. It takes us time to gather everyone together. So please come. September 12, 2001, morning in Haifa. So I asked Ilana, who always knows what to do. Right, Ilana? How do I bring this happy energy into this day? And she said, don't you love Sting? I said, yes. She says, doesn't he have this wonderful song talking about the fragility of life? I said, yes. I said, but that's a song in English. He said, so let's translate it to Hebrew. So we sat up all night translating it to Hebrew, and we'll now sing it for you, so that we all cherish our life, our good life, our problems, the things we've achieved together, and we all do carpe diem as much as possible. This is Fragile by Sting. If blood will flow, and flesh and still our wine, drying in the color of the evening sun, tomorrow's rain will wash the stains away. Something in our minds will always stay. Perhaps this final act was meant to clinch a lifetime's argument. Nothing comes from violence, nothing ever could. For all those born beneath an angry star, lest we forget how fragile we are. Come on, join me. On and on, the rain will fall like tears from the stars, like tears from the stars. On and on, the rain will say how fragile we are, how fragile we are. עם דם ישטוף בין חרב לידם, מתייבש בשמש של היום החם, הגשם של מחר ישטוף הכל, אך מי יודע אם נוכל למחול. אולי גם הסיבוב הזה נועד רק להמחיש את זה, שכלום לא בא מהלימוד, ממנה רק נמות, אם נולדנו בכוכב אכזר. כדאי תמיד לחשוב גם על מחר. On and on, the rain will fall like tears from the stars, like tears from the stars. On and on, the rain will say how fragile we are, how fragile we are. And this is the piece one before last, so. From the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank again His Excellency Ambassador Jahel Vilan. For being a true Israeli, a gentleman and an officer. Thank you. Mrs. Vilan, Mrs. Brand, Mr. Mayor, ambassadors, Nada from Israeli Embassy. Where's Nada? Nada worked so hard with other people from the embassy, and she yesterday asked me, when are you leaving? I said, tomorrow, 6 p.m. Dana, Israeli Embassy. Mayan, Israeli Embassy. Dian, Israeli Embassy. Dragan, Israeli Embassy. Dushan, Israeli Embassy. And if he's not there, I'm sure it will be. Last piece, and the rest is in your hands. The Makris Symphony Orchestra, Belgrade. Thank you.